Today we honor Mother Jones on her birthday anniversary and two leaders of the United Mine Workers of America. They followed similar paths in life. Both began with humble beginnings, born of mining families in very small towns. They became miners, and union officials, always looking out for their fellow workers as they rose to the top positions of the United Mine Workers. They never forgot their roots. Brother Cecil Roberts from Cabin Creek, West Virginia, became the union's president, and Brother John Banovic from here in Mount Olive became the secretary-treasurer. They worked together to promote the union's agenda. They are both here today, President Roberts in person and Brother John Banovic in spirit, I'm sure. John Kaiser once wrote of a spirit thread being here. Brother John Banovic surely is part of the spirit thread of the Union Miners Cemetery.
In honor of Mother Jones's Irish roots, I have the bells of Ireland. These are for our friends from her Mother Jones's birthplace, the city of Cork in Cork, Ireland, the historic Shandon district.
It's really beautiful. Thank you for that. Beautiful.
As we gather here today, had it not been for people like Mother Jones in the beginning, we may not have a middle class, and we're fighting for it as we all gather here today to retain a middle class. We would not have the 8-hour day, we've not had health care, pensions, and all those things that we take for granted today. And yes, she used some very colorful language because she had to use some very colorful language. And I would say to all the women here today, we need your leadership. Mother Jones used to say, don't call me a lady, because the rich aristocrats made ladies, but God Almighty made women. So God made all of you, and we need your leadership. And to all of my brothers and sisters here from the mine workers, you know, Mother Jones said a lot of things, and I'm going to quote her when we get to the museum. But one of the things that always inspired me when Ludlow took place and the National Guard shot into the tents, walked off the hill and set the tents on fire and burned 13 women and children alive. That was part of our heritage growing up in that disaster. So what did Mother Jones say to us? When I say us, I consider people in Ludlow and the people of Cabin Creek and people here the same. We're working folks trying to do the best we can, right? She gathered all those strikers together after that terrible, terrible thing, that massacre that took place. And this is what I always think about. She said, sure you lost, because they had bayonets. And all you had was the Constitution. And any battle between the Constitution and bayonets, the bayonets will win every time. But you must fight. You must fight and lose. You must fight and win. But above all, you must fight. And I'm so proud of United Mine Workers because we've been doing something people said you could not do in this day and age. We have been fighting since 2013 for our pensions and our health care, and we've won the health care fight. And as we stand right here next to Mother Jones's grave, we will not stop until we win this pension fight, because we are the United Mine Workers of America. You know, Mother Jones first showed up where I lived way before I was born. Miners on Paint Creek went on strike in 1912. They were already in the union, and they were striking for a contract. The miners on Cabin Creek were non-union, so they saw the miners on Paint Creek striking, and they said, well, this is a good time for us to strike for recognition. By the way, we complain about the labor laws today. There were no labor laws back in 1912. It's whoever was the toughest and who could withstand the most, and maybe sometimes who was the best shot. That's who won those battles in those days. So you had all these miners, and by the way, it was very labor intensive. It was hand loading. There was 6,000 people on strike. Can you imagine? About 2 haulers. Cabin Creek's 15 miles long, and Paint Creek's a lot longer than that, but the mining on Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, they produced 6,000 people on strike. Well, the coal companies didn't like the fact that we went on strike, as you can imagine, and they retaliated. The first thing they did, they hired the Baldwin Phelps thugs out of Bluefield, West Virginia, the famous Phelps brothers, and they sent them in to Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, and the first thing they do is start mounting machine guns and building pillboxes like in World War I all around their properties, and they meant to kill people that tried to come on their property or try to break or try to stop them from mining coal. The next thing they did, they created a train they called the Bull Moose Special, and that train had an armored car on it, and they mounted a machine gun on that. Then they went to all the miners' homes and they evicted them. So not only were they jobless, they were homeless the day they went on strike, and a lot of people kind of miss that. So you're jobless and homeless the same day, and no one around this place has ever gone on strike and become homeless the day you strike. So then they took the train up the hollers, and they took all of the furniture that belonged to these coal miners, and they loaded it on the train. And they took that on Cabin Creek. They stopped at Estelle. My great-grandmother owned property at Estelle, 15 miles long, and only one place that wasn't owned by the coal operator, and that was Estelle. And they called Estelle the Free State of Estelle in those days because they weren't controlled by the coal industry, right? So Mother Blizzard gave them a right to put their tents on her property. But the problem you have here is one that's very obvious. There was no strike benefits in those days. The only thing that the union did was give them a tent. So now they're living in tents on Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, and every once in a while, here comes the Bull Moose Special up the road shooting at the tents, just for sport, right? This strike goes on and on and on, and then Mother Jones shows up. Now, when I quote Mother Jones, you've got to forgive me, because you cannot quote Mother Jones without cursing. Now, I could say blank, 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 and blank, 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 and you won't know what I'm talking about. So she goes up Cabin Creek, and they won't let her walk on the road. They, to be in the co-operators, they made her get in the creek. They said, that road belongs to us. So get in the creek, Mother Jones. And so they called out walking the creek, and she's walking the creek to try to get up and to Estelle to see the strikers on Cabin Creek, and she does the same thing at Paint Creek. And the next thing she does is, we need a rally here. You know, we've had lots of rallies in the mine workers here since 2013, haven't we? So she's at the mouth of Cabin Creek, and she's standing on a stump, and there's 6,000 people listening to her. No PA system. Now, you know what I think about that? There was 5,800 people didn't hear a word she said. Only about 200 could hear her. And that's one of the places stump speeches, I guess, came from, because she'd get up on a stump that somebody cut a tree down so people could see her in the back. And she said this to the striking miners: you're all a bunch of cowards. She said, y'all let the women run this strike. And chastised them to no end. Now, she was pretty good at that, you know. And so she says, now, if you want to win this strike, go up Paint Creek and Cabin Creek and arm yourselves. And you kill every one of them son of a bitches. Then you burn their temples down and their plants, and you'll win this strike. And guess what? They did exactly that. And it became a shooting. It called it mine wars then. It wasn't a strike. It became a mine war of coal miners and these thugs shooting at each other. And the Bull Moose Special shooting at everybody. And guess whose side the government ended up being on? It wasn't ours. And the government has never really been on the side in our history that I can find when we go on strike. If you don't believe that, look at the strike at Pittston. The first thing they did, they go get injunctions. The federal judges on whose side? On Pittston's side. The state police was on whose side? How many of you went to Pittston by a show of hands in here? How many state police did you meet was on your side when you came down there? And the injunctions were all about putting us back to work and all about breaking the strike. So nothing changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. But they could declare martial law. And you know what they did? They started having hearings right outside in the open. And they said, we saw you on the picket line. Send him not to jail. They sent him to penitentiary. And that was it. Trials right there. And they locked Mother Jones up under house arrest in Pratt, West Virginia. And she almost died there. She got pneumonia. And there's a picture of that house in the museum here, by the way, Pratt, West Virginia. And the governorship changed from a governor called Glasscock to one that was called Hatfield. And yes, he was a descendant of Devil Anse Hatfield. He was a doctor. He goes up Cabin Creek and he sees Paint Creek. He sees Mother Jones sick. And he orders her to be taken care of and sent to a hospital, probably saved her life. That strike was broken because of martial law. The miners on Paint Creek got to keep their union. The miners on Cabin Creek, they did get union recognition, but nothing else out of that. So they had to deal at the company store, and they had to live in the company house, were virtually still slaves, right? So what else were they fighting over in those days? I was looking at the statistic. How many miners do you think died in the United States of America in 1907? It was I think it was over 3,000 miners that killed in the coal mines in the United States of America in 1907. Now, you're striking also to stay alive, right? You're just about as well off getting shot at out there on the picket line as you were working in one of these coal mines. So what happens next? The miners at Paint Creek and Cabin Creek are back to work. The next thing that happens is Ludlow. The workers at Ludlow, they go on strike, coal and iron police. Then you've got Mother Jones showing up in Ludlow, Colorado in 1914. And the Ballenfest Guards showing up in 1914. And they created an armored car like the Bull Moose Special. They're shooting at everybody there. Now you got the miners on strike. They're homeless and they're jobless. But that's not good enough for these folks on the other side. They decide to shoot this colony up. They put a machine gun up on the hill and they fire right into this tent colony with the miners and their families there. The miners knew that was going to happen, so they dug pits to where they could get down in the pits and not be shot as the bullets flew. How would you like to be on strike and bullets flying through by your kids and by your family and grandma and grandpa and everybody getting shot at? And just by sport, and this is the government doing this, okay? So that wasn't good enough for them. That wasn't enough fun. So they go walking off that hill after shooting the colony up and carrying kerosene. They dumped kerosene all over these tents and they set them on fire and they burned 13 women and children alive in 1914. And that's when Mother Jones made the quote that I mentioned over at the cemetery about sure you lost because they had bayonets and all you had is the Constitution. And every time there's a conflict of that type, the bayonets will win every single time, right? So she said, don't make any difference. You still got to fight. If you don't fight, you don't stand up, your things will never change. You'll have to accept what comes your way. Then the next thing that switches off is the Mayday Massacre in 1920. When Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers shot those guards that had been used at Paint Creek, Cabin Creek, and Ludlow dead right in the street. And I was watching that movie for the first time in the theater. And how many of you have seen that movie, Mayday? Now, do you remember at the end when the Ballenfest thug is trying to get away? He was downtown when he got shot at. He's running. And this woman on the other side that ran the boarding house and got the shotgun and holding it like this. There's a woman behind me in the theater said, shoot that son of a bitch. And I was like, I'm thinking, well, he didn't hear you. But she got inspired by that. And guess what? She did. What happened to Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers and everybody involved in that? Nothing. Because the Union controlled Mayday. There was a trial, all right, and there was an African American on that trial, on that jury. You know what he said? He looked out the window and he said, "You see that tree out there? It's going to turn again. And it's going to turn again before I vote to convict Sid Hatfield." The jury found Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers innocent, and all the others involved in that. Because as their theory was, the thugs had it coming. That's not exactly law, but that's the way they based their decision. But the next thing that happened, Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers were murdered on the courthouse steps in Welch, West Virginia. And that created what? The biggest uprising in the history of this nation, the biggest armed uprising by coal miners and anybody else in the United States of America when they marched on Blair Mountain. 10,000 armed UMWA members said, "We've had it up to here. We're going to go to Logan County and hang the sheriff by a sour apple tree," and they said that. "And then we're going on over into Mingo County and we're going to liberate every one of those miners being held in jails over it because they want to join the Union." But the United States Army was called, and Mother Jones showed up there, by the way, and she tried to stop those miners from marching. Miners got mad at her over that, by the way. But I think she was afraid that they was all going to get massacred. But that ended in a stalemate because our people did not want to fight the United States Army. By the way, that was the first time an airstrike has ever been called within the continental borders of the United States. They dropped bombs on striking miners going up that mountain at Matewan. On top of the mountain was 400 or 500 deputy sheriffs with machine guns shooting down at it. So when we come in here today, and we've had some struggles within the last 50 years here, but we have not had struggles like that. So when I say the blood of Mother Jones is running through our veins, I believe it's the willingness to stand up when we've had enough and fight. And I think we've demonstrated that here since Pittston. 4,000 people were arrested at Pittston. I was in 5 jails in 24 hours. Nobody wanted me. I guess I needed a shower or something. Maybe I couldn't figure that out. They could have locked me up. I had move him somewhere else. Don't want him in our jail because nobody wanted them demonstrations around their jails. The fact of the matter. I want to tell y'all something. If enough working people stand together for a common purpose, there is absolutely nothing we can't do. When they said we couldn't win a strike at Pittston, we did. When they said you couldn't beat the marshals, you couldn't beat the sheriffs, you couldn't beat the state police, you couldn't beat the governor, you couldn't beat the injunctions, you couldn't beat the state judge, the federal judge, but we did. And we kept our pensions and our health care. If we'd have lost that strike, we'd have lost them right there on that day. And then when they said you can't do anything about a bankruptcy, I said, well, we may not be able to, but I believe in the power of prayer here for one thing. I said, I believe that if enough people surround Peabody's headquarters on a regular basis, something's going to change here. And Peabody, after about 10 months of this, says, look, we'll give you some money if you just go away. Don't you come back. Here's some money. I'm going to tell you, that's a fact. And they said, I'll tell you what, after agreeing to give us $300 or $400 million, they said, I'll tell you what we'll do. If you get those 6 coal miners that's been standing out there every day, from Illinois, by the way, if you just get them out of here this evening, we got a couple million more dollars for you. I said, they'll be gone by dark. So, don't let anybody tell you you can't do something about somebody or something. If working class people vote in unison, then nobody can get elected but the people we want, but we don't do that. If we stand together, we can beat any corporation. We can keep our health care. We can keep our pensions. We can have a decent lifestyle. And there's one thing I bet Mother Jones would tell us, that she could walk up here right now and tell us to do something. What do you think it might be? I believe she'd say, you've got to get out this door, and we should all be an organizer. Sometimes people look at me and say, what are you going to do about that coal mine down there? I said, well, what are we going to do about that coal mine down there? Is what I believe we ought to be saying. Because that's how we organized folks in the 20s and in the 30s. We didn't pay some organizer to knock on a door or go on a computer. Somebody in a group of somebodies got together and did this. And
to use the power of our collective solidarity and our collective unity to make the changes we want. What would Mother Jones tell you to do? Don't mourn, organize. Don't mourn, organize is what she would tell us, and she'd tell all of you, not just me, but all of you. You be an organizer too. And you go out here and you tell people who might be working at one of these non-union mines, a non-union factory. Maybe they are working for the state or the federal government or anybody that works ought to be in a union. Anybody that works ought to be in a union. That's what they ought to be about. And you should be like Peter and Paul and the disciples. You should be telling them the same thing. There was only 12 organizers that Jesus had. And look what he did. 12 of them. Now think about that. I'd like to have them 12 organizers, wouldn't you? But look at all the people in this around right here. Organize 10 people, and anybody can organize 10 people. We'd have 7,000 or 8,000 people before tomorrow night. But we're not doing that. So what should you be doing if Mother Jones was here? She'd say, go out and tell these people something. Go out and tell them if you want higher wages, you should do what? Join a union. If you want health care, you should join a union. If you want a pension, you should do. Oh, come on now. You let Mother Jones hear you over on the cemetery. You should join a union. If you want a safer place to work, what should you do? If you want a healthier place to work, you should. If you want to have a voice at work, you should. If you want to protect your Social Security, you should. If you want to protect your Medicare, you ought to. If you want equal pay for women, you should. If you want more freedom in America, you should. And if you just want to tell the boss to kiss your ass, you ought to join a union. Y'all are way too kind to me. Now, some of you didn't understand a word I said. You're always doing the same thing here in Illinois. Where do you get that accent at? Write this down. I don't have an accent. Because God talks like me. And God talks like me, you got an accent. If you don't believe that's true, wait till you get up to the pearly gates and old St. Peter says, y'all getting a pickup truck. We're going to the big house shortly. Thank you and God bless all of you.